You sort of get a feeling that there are days in the Chassidish calendar that one needs to be steeped in Chassidus or very much in touch with their spirituality in order to relate to things that happened a long time ago or in places of different circumstances. But a day like Chof Beis Shevat is a day that really any person, whether they know a lot of Chassidus or less so, or is on Shlichus or not, any person really with a beating heart senses that this is something that's relevant to them and important to them and personal to them. I remember hearing from a friend who told me this story. He related it was probably about 7 years after Chof Beis Shevat, Tafshin Nun Hey or Nun Vav, 1995, 96. And telling me that he had gone to help a shliach in a small town, a shliach that had just started in a very small community, and he watched this shliach on the day before Chof Beis Shevat calling for hours in order to gather together a minyan so that night there'd be a minyan for the Ma'ariv of Chof Beis Shevat, for the next morning Shachris, for the next afternoon. And after watching this going on for so long, him working so hard to gather the minyan, he asked this younger man, he asked this fresh shliach, he said, you don't even have a minyan for Shabbos every week. You struggle with a minyan for Shabbos. You know how hard this is. Why are you making such an effort? And he said, the shliach turned to him, he says, what do you mean? Who do you think is supposed to be davening for the Amid? Who do you think is supposed to be observing the Yahrtzeit for the Rebbetzin, if not myself? In other words, Chof Beis Shevat is a day that without too much deep meditation, we understand this is a day that belongs to every single one of us, because every single one of us in one way or another, we're deeply affected by the Rebbe, by the Rebbetzin, and together with that comes the awareness, like it says, Banecha Elo HaTalmidim, that Talmidim Kruyim Banim, that a person's students they were Meiser Nefesh for, who they sacrificed everything for, become that person's children. We all know the story that was related that once a child, in visiting the Rebbetzin at their home, asked the Rebbetzin, where are your children? Question, like an innocent question from a child, something that an adult would know wasn't appropriate to ask. And the Rebbetzin said that my children are in 770. And it wasn't a euphemism or just a cute thing to say. The Rebbetzin meant it, that to the Rebbe, and by extension to the Rebbetzin, their children were every Chassid and every Jew, wherever they might be. This is what the Rebbe's entire life was, and by extension, the Rebbetzins' entire life was all about. And so when it comes to observing and commemorating and keeping the minhagim of the Yahrtzeit, of Chof Beis Shevat, one needn't be the biggest Chassid in the world. One needn't have the deepest feelings. Just a moment's thought is enough to provide the realization of how important a day this is to us and how personal a day this is to us. Right? Just like when it comes to observing a Yahrtzeit, Chas v'shalom, for a parent that passes on, it really makes no difference if a person sees themselves as a deeply emotional person, as a deeply spiritual person. If it's a person that's a Jew and believes in the eternity of the neshama and so on, they keep the customs of the Yahrtzeit, because this is what a child and a loved one does for someone that passes away, someone that's dear to them. And so this is really what Chof Beis Shevat, in addition to being a very significant day and obviously a holy day and a special day, for a chassid it's a very, very personally, like in the words of that, who else should be doing it if not us? And reminding ourselves of this and doing the things that a Yid does on a Yahrtzeit. Learning the Mishnayos, davening with the minyan, for those that are in a position to, saying the Kaddish, gathering together family and explaining to them the significance of this day and what personally it means to us. It reminds us and it connects us, and again, it's in a sense a duty that every one of us has, in addition to the schus to be able to do it. Also a very basic duty that each and every one of us have. I remember the last Chof Beis Shevat, when the Rebbe was observing the Yahrtzeit for the Rebbetzin, before Chof Zayin Adar, before the stroke. The Rebbe came back from the oil and started to give out the pink kuntras to the people that were there, and there was a huge crowd. Everyone understood it was natural that everybody came in to observe and to be close and to participate in the Rebbetzins Yahrtzeit during those years. And the Rebbe stood, and to those that were aware then, at that time the Rebbe was in deep pain, physical pain. And the Rebbe stood and smiled and gave and smiled at the children that went by and gave and stood for hours and gave out over 10,000 of these kontrosim, of the little pink booklets, to every single boy and girl and man and woman. And you think about it, you know, the Rebbe didn't say, I gave 9,999 already. I'm tired, I've done my thing. Everyone else has gotten. The Rebbe stood there until every single last Jew, every single Jew that wanted, that approached the Rebbe, was treated like an only child. And so that's really all, or a basic that's asked of us, that we need to realize and internalize, that this is something that, again, one needn't be extremely spiritual for. This is a basic menschlichkeit and a basic sense of achrayus and reciprocal human feelings that every one of us need to have. And when we think about this and remind ourselves of the depth of what the Rebbe gave us, and watching the sacrifice that the Rebbe had for every one of us, and how much the great debt of gratitude that we owe the Rebbe, this will keep us together and listening and learning from what the Rebbe teaches us and wants from us, and will help in each of our own geula pratis, our own personal redemption and growth, and ultimately to bring about the geula klalis, complete and final geula, through the coming of Mashiach, when we'll be together with the Rebbe, with the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushkah.